championship game is set between Michigan and Washington. Shannon, SA, and I will be there Monday broadcasting First Take live from Houston. We can't wait for that. I'm sure Paul Finebaum will be in the arena as well. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year.
All right, let's dive right in because we had some serious football this weekend. We'll flash back to the Rose Bowl yesterday where Michigan's Blake Corum scored on a 17-yard TD run in overtime before the Wolverines stopped Alabama and quarterback Jalen Milroe's 4th and goal attempt to end the game. It was quite the coaching matchup yesterday. Let's hear from them both. Harbaugh, you're up first.
You know, it's almost been an unfair advantage. I mean, all the things that the team has gone through. I mean, we don't care anymore. We don't care what people say. We don't care about anything that comes up. We just know we're going to overcome it.
I told him before the game it's going to be about what we do, and when you look back at it, it's kind of about what we did and what we didn't do. Not taking anything away from Michigan. They played a great game. They got a good team. They're very well coached, but you know, we could have done things a little better as well. And that's on me, on the coaches. It's not anybody else.
All right, SA, tell me this. Do you feel like Michigan won it or Bama lost it?
Well, you know what? I'm going to say, listen, I don't want to take any credit away from Michigan because the Michigan, to me, showed they're the best team in the nation. Give them props. But that doesn't mean that Alabama didn't blow this. You did have the lead with about 3 minutes left in the game, okay? You had the lead, all right? You were up 20-13. Your defense holds. There is no overtime. And as a result, you don't end up losing this game. But that's not what transpired yesterday. There's a couple of things that we can look at. We can look at the fact that Milroe dropped back to pass. His first 6 dropbacks, guys. He was sacked 4 times. They were all over him. Now, I'm looking at this center, what was it, Seth McLaughlin? I mean, the dude had been having problems all season long snapping the football, and my God, did it show up yesterday. I mean, you could have scored on a scoring drive, but he dropped him back 14 yards with back-to-back bad snaps, and then had the audacity to unmitigated a goal to be arguing with the quarterback about it, when clearly it was you, okay? And that very last play of the game, obviously it was an RPO, but nevertheless, the bottom line is it was a low snap yet again to Milroe, which obviously cost them. We could sit up there and lament the play itself, the play call itself. We could look at Saban or whatever. But in the end, Milroe, the bottom line is it was a really bad snap yet again. There's a plethora of things we can point to. Neither team was strong offensively on third down conversions. We get all of that. But I'm just looking at it from this perspective. I'm listening to Dan Orlovsky. I'm listening to Paul Finebaum on Get Up Earlier, Shannon, and they're talking about how Nick Saban was outcoached. Fair enough, fine, because obviously Harbaugh showed up. But in the end, I'm looking at it and saying the man had a lead. Yeah. He had a lead. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like they were losing. He had the lead, with 3 minutes left, and somehow, some way, they blew this game. So I'm going to look at it from that perspective, not taking anything away from Michigan. Michigan showed me something. They are a special team, no doubt about it. But it was Alabama's game to lose, to win rather, and they lost it.
Well, they were very much outcoached yesterday. I don't know why you keep playing all this man coverage, and you look at Michigan, all they're doing is running crossing routes, and guys are wide open. Stephen A., you mentioned it. Alabama had them 4th and 2. You stop them here, you win you on to the national championship game, and you leave the flat route uncovered. Corum catches the ball, he runs down the field, picks up big yardage, and now they go on down the field and score. And you made it so easy for them. 2 plays and then to the end zone in overtime. This was Alabama. I would have to say, and I think Coach Saban's like, he's very proud of this team. This is a young football team, but they were outcoached yesterday. I didn't see the adjustments schematically, what you need to make adjustments in doing, because you see Michigan is running the exact same routes. But give those guys credit. They stepped up on that last drive. Those the catch that he made, Malachi looked like he was getting an interception. The guy jumps up, he catches it. Yep. And then they run the flat route. They bring him from the backside. He's wide open again. How many times did we see that, Stephen A. and Paul, that Alabama failed to make adjustments when they needed to? And that's what Coach Saban is. Coach Saban is a very tactical guy. Second half, he normally makes the adjustments. They didn't make the adjustments necessary in order for them to win the game. Yeah, they're very young. Yeah, Milroe is his first year starting. And Stephen A., you mentioned it. He had 53 yards passing, 53 yards in the first half, got sacked 5 times. That's the most sacks in a half by any Alabama quarterback. And we know how long Coach Saban has been at Alabama. But I want to give Michigan credit because they did a great job early on in this ball game, confusing Alabama and getting pressure on the quarterback. I don't want to take anything away from Michigan. Michigan did what they needed to do to win. Coach Saban needed to do a better job schematically, and he didn't make any adjustments, or at least not soon enough.
you're both right to a point. Stephen A., Alabama was lucky to be in the game at halftime. I
agree.
Michigan was making mistakes from the opening series when they threw an interception and they got it back, and then they threw it away again on a muff punt. They had a couple of those. And you're also right about the Alabama center. I mean, that's inexcusable. But ultimately, Jim Harbaugh made the fourth quarter adjustments. They won the fourth quarter in the overtime. And I agree with Shannon. I think Nick Saban was outcoached. Now, that's hard to say when we're talking about somebody as great as Nick Saban, because you can pick and choose anywhere you want. But ultimately, this was a defining moment for Jim Harbaugh. As many flaws as they had, I thought up front they were dominating. Milroy was just all over the place. This was not the same guy we saw lead Alabama to a stunning win over Georgia 4 weeks ago. But this is the Alabama team, Stephen A., that we talked about after the Texas game. I'll never forget. You said, I don't like this team. And you were right. There was a lot not to like. They got better because the offensive line got better. Tommy Rees, the coordinator who came over from Notre Dame, who really wanted to jettison Milroy after the second week of the season, finally started dialing up some winning shots, but they were up against a better team yesterday. And I think when we talk about Alabama, we always think they're the best team. They weren't the best team.
They weren't.
They're a good team. But they were an overachieving team, and I think it finally caught up to them when they ran into the bully yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm like, they had to lead. And when they had to lead in the first half, they had to lead with 3 minutes left in the game, despite all the things that we're talking about. Think about this. If you tell me going into the game, your offensive line is going to get punked straight up because they're just more physical, they're going to bum rush you, there's little to nothing that you're going to do about it. We're going to sack your quarterback 4 times in his first 6 dropbacks, for crying out loud. I couldn't even recall a reception by a receiver in the first half. And I didn't blame Milroy at all because my attitude was he had no protection. You wasn't protecting him whatsoever. So if you're not protecting him, he doesn't even have enough time to look for a receiver. You couple that with the fact that your center can't snap the damn ball to save his life. And oh, by the way, we're able to look at that from the second game of the season, Shannon. Second game of the season. Remember, Tommy Nees is your offensive coordinator. He elects that we got to go in a different direction after the Texas game because Milroy was so awful. Well, guess what? You never really fixed your offensive line. No. So if we want to point to Nick Saban and what have you, let's think about it this way. I never thought the day will come because when I think about Alabama, I think about meat and potatoes. I mean, you can appreciate that, Shannon, as big as you are. I'm talking about meat and potato brothers right there. You put the hogs in front of you. I could not believe that a defensive line was so dominant against Alabama's offensive line. But when you're able to go back to the second game of the season and you're able to look at the amount of sacks, they give them 35 sacks this year. It's the most, I don't know how many decades that Alabama has given up so many sacks. All of these things you're pointing to, they still had to lead with 3 minutes left.
Right. This is the first. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. But normally when Alabama loses, they get dominated on both sides of the ball, offensive line and defensive line. And you look at Michigan really whipped them when they needed to. See, I think the mark of a great offense or a great defense, can you get done what you need to get done when you have to have it? You look at Michigan when they needed it, they were down. You mentioned, Stephen, they were down with 7 with 3 minutes to go in the ball game. They dialed that big A. Them offensive linemen came out there and said, let's go. You watching, they said, let's go. They run the ball. Right. They run the ball. They protect J.J. McCarthy. And when they had to have it, Jim Harbaugh says, I need a stop. We get a stop, we're going to Houston. And they shut it down. That was a terrible, I don't know, look, come on now. Of all the plays, you called a timeout, and that's the play you dial up? Yeah. They hit it. Look, first of all, with a mobile quarterback, I'm not going to let you have time to make a decision like he had time against Auburn and he made that throw. That's right. I'm going to put pressure on you right now. I'm hitting it. You know they're going to bring pressure. And they brought the pressure. They pushed the offensive line back, and Milroe really never had a chance to get it going. But there are some things that Milroe needs to work on. Yep. You need to know when they come with that slot blitz, they're bringing the safety, the corner's one-on-one. You got to abort the fake. When you fake it, the corner's going to come because he sees the wide receiver pull up outside. That's certain things you're just going to have to know from trial and error. Look, I get it. This is his first year starting, Paul. But those are some of the things that it's going to have to be second nature. The coach can't tell you everything that you need to do. It's just quarterbacking, and you just play the game. Give Michigan credit. Michigan was really good when they had to be great, and that's what they were.
Paul, I want to get in here quickly.
And even then,
oh, go ahead.
Well, and by the way, and even then, Michigan tried to blow it at the end with that muff punt. I mean, that would have been one of the more shocking endings of all time.
That's right.
Yeah. Paul, outside of last night, from a macro perspective, considering this team, though, some have said this was Saban's best coaching job, even getting the team here. Where are you on that?
Well, it was his best coaching job, but you can't make that declaration until the final game. And I think last night really takes away from that. Because that was not vintage Nick Saban. So it was certainly inspirational to watch because we all, Alabama fans were grabbing me out in California saying, you gave up on this team. You said it was over. Everybody said it was over. Come on. I mean, we all declared it dead because we had justification. We watched Alabama get bullied at home by Texas and then nearly blow a game against South Florida. They didn't know what they were doing, and then they made this great comeback. But there was always this feeling, Stephen A. and Shannon, that something wasn't right, and because they had so many. I mean, when their best player at times was Caleb Downs, a freshman. I mean, you started to go, wow. I mean, the talent is all over the place. But they were able. I mean, the Georgia game is an enigma. I mean, that's on Kirby Smart because we know Georgia is one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country, and they may be the best, but they're never going to be able to prove it. It doesn't matter. But Alabama was fortunate to get in there, and they were able to nuance their way to the showdown against Kirby, and that was Nick versus Kirby, and Nick won again, like he does just about every time, but that one time. So I think that's really the defining moment, and I don't think the Alabama players respected the Big Ten. And by the way, with justification. We watched Penn State get rolled over by Ole Miss. We watched Missouri beat Ohio State. I mean, it was embarrassing to watch. So they're in the mindset, and that's what happens in the South with the SEC. That players just they quit listening to the coach. They go, we're better than those guys. And the interesting thing being out there all week, guys, the Michigan players didn't care. I don't think they said all the right things about Alabama, but there was a confidence about them, Shannon, that you've seen and you've displayed before.
Well, I'm gonna give this to you real quick, Shannon, but I'm gonna say this, okay? I'm not gonna. You know better than me, Paul, whether or not this was Nick Saban's best job, considering the lack of expectations, because you had question marks at the quarterback spot. Remember, I give him a lot of credit because remember the second game of the season, like I was lost. I was like, I'm not feeling this team at all. And then to see him develop and come back, listen, and the brother can run with the football. And I'm wondering, and Shannon, you can explain this to me, whether or not you just throw a bunch of just so you know they can't go zero blitz on you. You know what? Just put some folks out wide and make them honor the passing game so you can run, as opposed to stacking the deck, knowing they stack the line of scrimmage. I don't understand that at all. I don't get it. But in the end, I'm going to say this. You beat Georgia for the SEC championship. It was an undefeated Georgia team who is the reigning defending two-time national champions. And their coach is somebody who coached for you and, oh, by the way, beat you a couple of years ago for the national championship. So I look at it from that perspective, and I'm not going to sit up here and say, well, we knew that, Alabama just overachieved. Wait a minute, they did, but in the same breath, once you knocked off Georgia, I certainly expected them to put forth a better showing in terms of their offensive line.
They're not loaded like Alabama is normally loaded, especially at the skill position, especially the offensive and the defensive line. This is not what it might be one of his best coaching jobs, given what he has. How many first rounders do you think they have on that team this year, Paul? Not like they normally have. And so when you look at Blake Sims, when they lost, go ahead, Paul.
Couple of them.
Yeah, but when I look,
they got two or three, but not like last year.
And when I look at Milroe, and he got another year to get better and improve. But I just thought there were a ceiling that they have with him, given the talent that they got around him and his ability. He's young. He's only going to take you so far. And with the talent devoid of the talent that Alabama normally has, this was as far as they were supposed to go.
Here's the thing that I will say to both of y'all, because I don't know college football the way Paul does, and I don't know football the way that you do. But I know this much. I've been on this show for 12 years. I've been a journalist for 30. I ain't never had to talk about no damn center. Ever. Ever. I mean, we're sitting here on national television, and the fact that Seth McLaughlin, that we even know your name, is a problem. because I have never had to look at it. I've never seen a game where there was a multitude of bad snaps from the first quarter to the fourth. Paul, am I lying? I've never seen it where from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, we're talking about a center.
Stephen A., Jeff Saturday might have something to say about that. He'll be here.
I'm sure he would.
But if you look at Alabama, the meat and potatoes, all those first round and high draft picks on the offensive line, all those high draft picks on the defensive line, they don't have that right now, Stephen A.
And they better get it.
And they don't have a quarterback that can play above that, like we've seen in the past. We saw Bryce Young. We've seen the guy in New England. I forget it off the top of my head. We've seen Tua.
Mac Jones.
Come on, Stephen.
You're right about that. I will say this, though. I mean, again, looking at it, they got to get the meat and potatoes brothers right there. I mean, but I will give Michigan credit for this. He wasn't just snapping the ball badly and that was it. He looked nervous because Michigan was coming.
For sure.
That pressure affected him. That was obvious.